Tonight, Superboy shows us what happens when editorial forgets that you actually have your own book. Deathstroke sits down for a nice intellectual conversation with Hawkman regarding the merits of nth metal. And you will not believe who Batgirl's newest romantic interest is. Kinda. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 63 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and I don't even know where to begin with this week because this week is pretty much nothing but event and crossover tie-ins. They have entirely taken over. So I'm just going to get into the comics and tell you what's coming up so I can explain to you how insane this is. So this week we have 14 comics, including the number 14 issues of Batman, Batgirl, Batman and Robin, Superboy, Green Lantern Corps, Deathstroke, Grifter, Suicide Squad, Legion Lost, Demon Knights, and Frankenstein. Additionally, we have the number 6 issue of Ravagers and the number 2 issues of Team 7 and the Phantom Stranger. Now, event-wise, let me just walk you through this. So we have a couple of Death of the Family tie-ins involving Batman, which is the main story, Batgirl, and Suicide Squad. Additionally, we have the Hell on Earth storyline in Superboy. We have Team 7 and Demon Knights doing more Black Diamond probability. Rise of the Third Army is being covered in Green Lantern Corps. Deathstroke is doing Hawkman Wanted. And on top of that, it's not even an event, but Legion Lost is doing a thing because they're in their last couple issues where they're pulling in Superboy and Ravagers and messing with their storylines so that Superboy that we're reading this week doesn't actually take place for another 3 more months. I get into it more in the Superboy review, but dear Lord, everything is crossing over with everything. Batman and Robin also may as well be a tie-in to Death of the Family. It isn't, but it may as well be. And the only one that gets out completely unscathed, as far as I could tell, is Phantom Stranger. Also, there's Grifter, but Grifter's kind of crossing over with Stormwatch. It's a bit weird. Either way, it's an insane week. It is absolutely crazy, and usually I put all the event comics at the beginning of the episode, but since all of them are event comics, I'm just going to do them in my normal order, because screw it, why not? I am so fed up with these events already, and half of them are just starting. Alright, enough of my rambling and babbling. Only thing worth noting before I get into the comics is, of course, Kevin Conroy, voice of Batman in God knows how many iterations, has sadly passed away the weekend prior to this episode. Rest in peace, Mr. Dark Knight. But with no further ado, let's get into this week's comics. Batman number 14, written by Scott Snyder, art by Capullo. This is part 2 of Death of the Family, and last issue we left off with Alfred being attacked by the Joker, and Batman being put into a vat of Joker acid by Harley Quinn. So this issue picks up with Batman just yelling out to Harley, just like, hey, you gotta let me out now. Where's the Joker, Harley? And Harley's just basically like, oh, it's not Mr. J anymore. I don't know. He's too mean now. He's different, so hey, who knows, maybe you'll be a better Joker. And then she just walks away, and Batman, he gets all upset, and he's trying to figure out a way out of this vat. Comes up with some, like, combustible burst or something like that, as he talks about how he analyzed the Joker slide on the nights where he couldn't sleep to try to figure out how Joker became Joker. But regardless, he breaks out of the vat, and he's looking around for Joker, can't find him. It's just like, alright, well, I guess I gotta take care of a few things. So he goes back to the Batcave and immediately puts out a high alert to all the members of the Bat family, just saying, hey, just letting you know, it's possible Joker's gonna be targeting you individually. So be on the lookout for that. And he calls out to Alfred, and of course Alfred's not answering. So he walks around the mansion a little bit, looking around for him until finally he comes across a blue and green wrapped present, and as he opens it up, he sees a little cassette tape inside. And as he plays the cassette tape, which props to him that he still has a cassette tape player, it's audio of Joker calling out to Bruce saying like, hey, sorry, had to borrow your butler for a little bit. I have a big party planned and I needed someone to do the serving. And Alfred's on the tape and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, Master Bruce. He's blindfolded me. I can't see anything. And Joker's like, I didn't blindfold you. I burned your eyes out with ammonia. Here, I'll do it again. And you hear Alfred screaming and Bruce is like freaking out about it. And at that point, we cut over to Jim Gordon, who is just sitting on the bed. He's upset. Batman comes in. Jim draws a gun, not knowing who it is. When he sees the Batman, Batman's basically like, okay, here's the deal. Bruce Wayne's butler got taken because of, I'm sure, some completely unrelated reasons. And also, I'm going to be moving you to a safer place, Jim, because he's going after all the people who are involved with Batman like it all. And that includes Bruce Wayne, because Bruce Wayne funds Batman Incorporated. That's important. So Jim's like, no, I need to be out there. I need to be on the front lines. I got to take him down. And we see that Jim then starts bleeding for some reason, like literally out of all of the pores in his body. And Batman has to rush him to the hospital. So it turns out that Jim was hit by a blood thinner, which I don't think that's how that works. But regardless, he's talking to Nightwing and basically says like, yeah, here's the deal. Alfred got taken, Nightwing. And Nightwing's like, oh, geez, why aren't you more upset, Bruce? And Bruce is like, I am horribly upset. But if we let our emotions get the best of us, then we're screwed. Like, Joker only wins if we're able to outmatch him. Like, we have to be thinking better than him. And that's why he also doesn't want anyone else in the family knowing that Joker took Alfred, so they won't get emotional and go rushing in. So he's like, all right, Nightwing, here's the thing. I've got a plan. I have an idea as to where he's going to be next. He's going to go down to the old reservoir and poison it, because that's what he did the first time, like, we met after the Red Hood thing. So he's going to go there. I need you to be ready down at the aqueduct to blow it up before the poison gets into the rest of the system, okay? Just go. And so Batman drives on his motorcycle down to the reservoir, and he's just thinking the whole time, like, boy, it sure is quiet. Usually I have Alfred in my ear, but he's not here anymore. So we get to the aqueduct, or the reservoir, and Joker's just standing there just being like, hey, you figured it out. Hi, how's it going? But he's, of course, not playing any games. He wants to know where Alfred is. And Joker just goes down his whole thing. He's like, here's the thing. We all know how this would go. I'd poison the reservoir. You'd blow up the aqueduct. A couple people would die in the more lower income housing because they wouldn't be able to, like, they're in the place before the aqueduct splits off. So I'm just taking care of all that before you even get here. And we see he's already rigged the aqueduct to explode, and he's already killed like 24 people just because why not? That's how we're just going to start it off. And Batman's like, God damn you. And he just goes in after Joker. Joker causes some chattering teeth toys to show up and bind Batman with a bunch of ropes. And he's like, okay, now we're going to get to the part that I really wanted to do. So he hops on the police radio because he knows that all the Bat people will be listening on the police wire. And he's like, I know who all of you are. I know all your secret identities. I watch you sleep. I watch you shower. I literally have been following you for the past year. And I'm going to kill you all one by one because you are what is dragging Batman down. You are the reason that he had to pull in the entire Bat family to take down a bunch of old rich people during the Court of Owls. You are making him worse, and I will see to it that all of you are dead. So it's going to be within 72 hours, and all of them will die. And that's where we leave off, just with the threat of it. And his last line is, Batman here will be the one who kills you. So how he's going to do that, don't know, don't care. It is a good issue. It is a nice, solid thing, but it is definitely just we're stating the intention of the arc. The first one was the eye catch. The second one is okay, here's what's actually going on. So it's good, but it is definitely suffering from the fact that it does have to, because it's literally like 4 or 5 full pages of just Joker, huge monologues, him just saying like, here's what I'm gonna do and here's this other stuff that's going on. Like, it's just the explanation issue. So in general, I'll give it like a 7.5 because I like where it's going. The art is fantastic the whole way through. It's a solid issue, but it does suffer ever so slightly from the fact of it being the explanation issue where it just has to stop everything for 4 pages of monologues. So neither here nor there, but we will pick up with Death of the Family throughout all the tie-ins and the next part in Batman. Batgirl number 14, written by Gail Simone, art by Ed Benes and Daniel Sampere. Last issue we left off with Batgirl getting a call from her mother, who was being attacked by a bunch of guys, basically restaging the Killing Joke. And this issue picks up literally at that same part, where the phone goes click and she's like, okay, something just happened, and she freaks out about it. She starts having like a panic attack, and she's like, all right, I gotta go help mom. I gotta figure out some way to do this. First thing I can do is call my dad. The police can get there faster than I can get there as Batgirl. And she starts to run out the door, but as she does so, she gets another phone call, and on the phone is this voice that comes through. She doesn't recognize it. It's using like a voice modulator, and it's a guy saying like, hey, I know that your mom just got attacked, and I'm here to help you, but first you have to do some stuff for me, okay? And it's just like, okay, well, first, I need you to make me a sandwich. And Barbara's like, are you kidding me right now? He's like, no, make me a sandwich. And he's like, okay, I guess. Why? He's like, I need you calm. I need you focused. Make me a sandwich. And so she makes a sandwich. And she's like, also get me a glass of milk just to wash it down. Gets a glass of milk and she's like, all right, cool, you're calm now. Now, get your work clothes on and get out there. And he's like, oh, you know I'm Batgirl. Oh, that's worse. That's not good. All right, but whatever. Oh, by the way, Batgirl, you got guys coming for you as well. And of course, right then, the door gets kicked in by 3 Joker goons. And she goes on like multiple pages here of like, for a split second, I'm back in that moment, the moment where I was paralyzed, the moment where I lost it all. But then that split second passes, and I'm just filled with anger and rage. And she just leaps on these guys and starts just brutally beating them up. Like, she snaps one of the guy's legs backwards. Like, it is no holds barred here. And in the end, she knocks them all out, takes the one who she snapped the leg of, grabs his gun, holds it to his head and saying like, all right, where's my mother? And he's like, Joker didn't tell us nothing. We don't know. So she lets the guy live, despite the fact that she's like, very well might have if he didn't react that way. Like, if he did any sort of laughing, I might have killed him. And again, on the phone, the voice calls back saying like, oh, hey, you took care of them. Anyway, I can point you where your mother is at. She's down by the roller rink, so go get her. And she hears something behind her, and turns out that it is her roommate, Alicia, which I'm really glad they renamed her here, because I would have forgotten. And basically, Alicia's like, do you want to tell me what's going on? And Batgirl's like, okay, no. I need you to call in the police, say that there was a breaking and entering. Don't mention anything else you saw. Also, you're never going to see me again. Bye. And so then she just leaves. She makes her way down to the skating rink where Joker does have Barbara's mother bound and gagged, and he's just skating around her. And all the people who were in the skating rink are Joker gassed and probably dead. And we see that Joker is basically just taunting Barbara Sr. I don't know. I'm going to say Mrs. Gordon. He's basically just taunting Mrs. Gordon the whole time, saying like, oh, yes, like it's nothing personal. It's literally only because of who you know. That's the only reason I'm doing this. So we see Batgirl makes her way to the roller rink, and she's still on the phone with the guy, and just basically asking, why are you doing this? Thinking that it's the Joker on the other side of the phone. Saying like, why are you leading me to you? What's the point of all this? And it's like, oh, that's the right question, but you'll never understand the answer, Barbara. Anyway, get in there. And then we see Mrs. Gordon's hand is bloodied and bandaged up, so something happened. Batgirl swoops down, kicks two goons who were guarding the place in the face, and makes her way inside. And she's got a batarang charged and ready to throw straight into Joker's skull. And Joker just goes off on a whole thing saying "Oh, Batgirl, I was hoping that if I took somebody from the Gordon side or something," basically saying I don't know specifically who you are, quote unquote, or at least he's not making that obvious, but he's saying I worked in your area hoping that you'd be the one that showed up. And then he goes on this whole thing about the wedding ring is because it's on the ring finger because Romans believed that there was a vein that went from your heart to your ring finger. It's whatever. But basically, she then calls him out why did you call me on the phone? And he's I haven't used the phone in months. I have no idea. So we're both being played, I guess. And she's still on the phone with the guy. And she's who are you? And he's sorry, Barbara, but deceiving you is the only way we could save our mother. It's James Gordon Jr. No points if you got that one early. But he's okay, so my own brother set me up in a fight against the Joker. I hate him so much. And at that point, Joker then comes up and just says, here's the thing. As stated in the main Batman Death of the Family arc, I don't want you guys bogging down Batman anymore. You're drowning him. You're suffocating him. All you sidekicks. So I have a plan, and I think you'll like it. And he pulls out the finger of Mrs. Gordon with the wedding ring on it. And he proposes to Batgirl, saying, "Would you do me the great honor of being my blushing bat bride?" Gotta say, didn't see it coming. Didn't know that one was there. I don't quite get it. It's a turn, and maybe I'm not supposed to understand the Joker's thing, but sure, whatever. Yeah, why not? If I'm looking at it in terms of the story, I think it's got a lot of potential, but I also think that this is basically just going to be wrapped up with her punching him a lot right now. I don't see how... There's no situation where Batgirl says, maybe if I lull him into a false sense of security, and she says yes, just to see what the rest of his... no. She's going to freak out and punch him in the face a lot. I don't see how we keep going down this thing. It just seems like an end-of-issue twist for no particular reason. But, hey, who knows? Maybe there's a bigger plan at play. Overall, art's fine. Nothing really stand out. There's a few points in here, especially the first page. It's a full-page spread of her just freaking out over her mom being there. That just, I don't know, didn't hit quite as I think they meant it to. It just felt a little bit silly to me, but it wasn't bad. So overall, I'm going to say this is probably a 6.5. It's not a bad issue, but it's definitely lacking in a lot of areas. So yeah, I think we have more Death of the Family tie-in moving forward after this, but hoo-wee. Batman and Robin number 14, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Patrick Gleason and Tomás Giorello. So last issue had some people coming up from the graves, and then Robin was attacked by a bunch of zombies saying "eat to live." And this issue picks up with some rich restaurant place, some high class dining, being attacked by said zombies, and it's almost like a Space Needle looking place. Batman's there, though. He immediately is firing a bunch of tranq darts into all of them to save as many people as possible. One of the really fat guys, though, takes 3 dozen tranq darts and doesn't go down, and he manages to tackle Batman out of the window, and Batman puts up a net to save him, and then the other guy who's tumbling with, Batman grabs him, but he's still tranquilized. He's out. So I don't really know what the point of that scene was. Then we move into Robin, who is being brought in alive by the zombies, all still chanting "eat to live." They hop onto a train that is for some reason full, an old style steam locomotive. that is for some reason still operating deep underneath Gotham. And at this point, Batman hops on the comms and is just like, Robin, I need you to answer me. And all of Damian's inner monologue is like, I can't really answer. I'm playing dead, so these zombies don't kill me. So he's, his comms are off, and Batman's like, pick up the phone, Damian. God, you gotta listen to me because I'm Batman and you're just Robin. And Batman's doing some blood serum stuff, trying to figure out exactly what's going on with him. But Robin gets brought to a point where basically it's this cult, the Saturn Club that we saw last issue. And they're like, oh boy, Saturn Club members, the main guy says, you have brought us a Robin. That's neat. We will devour him and therefore get immortality because that's just what we believe. And at that point, Robin gets up and he fires off some explosive, harpoons from his wrists. And it causes a big spectacle where Robin's able to get all of the people who were about to be devoured, free down into a freight elevator. But the Saturn Club is quickly taking off after them. The main one staying behind the whole time, just saying, go after them, get your food. What are you prepared to do for immortality? So the freight elevator's moving too slow, and for some reason he wants it to go down instead of up. So Robin cuts the cord. It starts plummeting downwards, and he fires a air cushion underneath the elevator to save everybody's life. But of course they don't have very long. So they hop onto the train, and apparently Damian was a train kid, because he just lists off yes, this was a secret transport for the president when he paid visits to Gotham back in the 1930s, and I don't even know who he's talking to, but regardless, he's just showing how smart he is. So they start up the train, it starts moving pretty quickly back the way they needed to go, but at that point, a bunch of the Saturn Club members are breaking into the train. Robin starts fighting against all of them, and it looks like he's outnumbered, but of course, Batman shows up. And Damian's like, yeah, Batman. And Batman's like, you should have picked up the phone, Damian. So they start fighting through the horde of cult members. And they finally have the train arrive at Gotham Central. And at that point, Batman just starts chewing out Damian, saying, why did you turn off your comm link? You could have just left the microphone on. You're an idiot, Damian. And you didn't even know that Joker was behind this whole thing. And Damian's like, what do you mean Joker was? But I saw the main guy. That wasn't Joker. It wasn't him at all. And at that point, he reaches into the coat of, I guess, one of the cult members, and it has a chattering teeth thing, along with, as far as I can tell, a webcam and a screen that just shows Joker's eye. And then Batman cracks it. And it's like, okay, well, I guess Joker was behind it. I still don't get how. But somehow he caused zombies. Sure. So anyway, they took apparently that blood sample that Batman took is what led him to, there's some unique concrete that was only used in those tunnels. So he managed to figure out where Damian's going to be. And they just basically argue, saying that Batman's like, hey, look, I lost a Robin before, and I'm not about to lose not only a Robin, but a son at the same time. You are too impulsive. You don't listen to instructions. I don't think this is going to work out. I don't think you care about anybody but yourself. And at that point, Damian's like, oh, but I do. And he reaches into his pocket and pulls out one of Bruce's mother's pearls that he was down in the sewer looking for last issue. And he pulls it out, and Bruce recognizes it, and he gives Damian a hug and tells him how proud of him he is. And that's where the issue leaves off. I don't dislike, that last 2 pages of the Pearl and everything like that almost makes all of it worth it. But at the same point, I don't, the rest of it didn't make any sense. At all. The dude who was in charge of the Saturn Club seemingly got away. Except maybe it was the Joker. Except I don't understand how it could be the Joker. This feels to me like a 2-issue arc that got hijacked. Because they needed it to kind of move into Death of the Family. But at the same point, it's 2 issues. That's not something that is hugely separate. I don't know. It just seemed very strange to me the whole way through. They were just pulling stuff out of nowhere. And don't get me started on, oh, the unique concrete that led me to this specific tunnel. Yeah, sure. Why not? Because that's just, I mean, Batman's done it before, but still, it just seems weak. So overall, I think this issue, if I was judging just based off the last like 2 panels, it would get so much better, but I'm not. I'm judging off the issue, and as such, I got to give it like a 6. It's not great. It's not a great issue. It's barely following through on the rest of the plot. Like, we didn't even cover how they took out all the rest of the zombies. Like, were they even zombies? Were they just guys that like kept on chanting? Were they just cannibals? Was that, I don't know. And this issue did nothing to explain it, so it gets a 6. Superboy number 14, written by Tom DeFalco, art by R.B. Silva. So last issue left off with Superboy going through a portal and meeting up with Caitlin Fairchild and the Ravagers. And then, apparently, according to an editor's box, the entirety of Legion Lost number 13, 14, 15, 16 and the Ravagers 5, 6, and 7 happened. Mind you, half those issues have not been released as of the releasing of this book, so we're just jumping to after all of that, and spoilers for those, I guess. So, Superboy comes out of a different portal with Jocelyn Lure, and he's very angry because apparently Harvest, yes, Harvest, has a back door into Superman's mind and is able to control him whenever he wants. And so now he's all pissed off because he's like, that's what I was made for. That was my purpose, and I don't like that. Leave me alone, Jocelyn Lure. I'm sick of being everyone's puppet. So he makes his way back home, and he curls up in bed, and he's all angry because he feels like he can't trust anybody. And then he hears noises downstairs, and who's there but Bunker from Teen Titans. And he's like, hey, we were supposed to chill tonight. I just walked into your house and started eating things and playing your video games because that's just what I do. And at that point, he's like, all right, look, I'm sick of this. I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to bed. And Miguel's like, no, you're not. We're going to chill out. We're going to hang. So tell me what's going on. And he tells him everything that happened over all these issues that I don't get to read yet. And then he says how angry he is about how he can't even trust his own feelings anymore, let alone anybody else's whatever. And Bunker tells him, like, hey, get dressed. We're going out. And we see, as they are walking out the door, what's-her-face, Dallas Sorrentino from across the hall that he's kind of dating. She peeks out the door and she makes sure that everyone remembers, I saw you being a metahuman before. How do I, like, maybe you're evil like the ones that are after me. But regardless, we don't deal with that. So Bunker and Miguel are making the way down the street, and basically Bunker's just telling him, like, look, you can move in with the Teen Titans. We want you there. And Superboy's like, most of you guys hate me. And it's like, yeah, but like we still want you there. So at that point, Bunker's like, look, do you at least have a name? I've been calling you Superboy the whole time. Have you picked up a name yet? And Superboy says Khan, short for Con-El, which is apparently a Kryptonian insult. And at that point, a voice rings out from down the street saying how he's an abomination of the House of El. And Bunker's like, I don't hear anything, bro. But then we see, I'm just going to skip to it, Hell. This is a Hell on Earth tie-in, after all, or maybe an official part, I don't know. Regardless, Hell's there saying, like, why are you here? Like, who makes a clone of a Kryptonian before, like, a clone of a human? Why are you here, man? And he's like, psh, I don't know who you are or what you want, but get out of here. And Miguel's like, dude, what are you talking about? And he thinks that because of the way he described how Harvest controlled his mind, he thinks that Harvest is controlling his mind again. So he's like, uh-oh, I might have to stop Superboy from snapping. I better call in the rest of the Teen Titans. So he uses his power to make some purple bricks in the shape of a giant T. Anyway, Superboy keeps on going up to fight against Hell, and Hell is curb stomping him, like literally. There is nothing he can do. And we cut over to Lex Towers, where Cassie and Bart are talking, And they see the T in the sky, and it's like, oh, well, we better go out and figure out what that's all about. So Superboy continues to get his butt hanging with him, and at one point he screams out like, no more, you're about to get a private lesson on the hazards of messing with a living wep. And then he again gets curb stomped. Like, he's like, all right, now you're just embarrassing yourself. He literally says that. He says those exact words. So at that point, Teen Titans show up, and they're like, hey, what's going on? Is Superboy? And it's just like, yeah, Superboy. He's down in that giant hole that he was thrown down into. I thought maybe he was going crazy. Not so sure anymore. So let's go find out. And as they go down in the hole, they see that hell is literally like tearing the flesh off of Superboy's body. And he's like, well, if I want to figure out what's so special about you, I got to tear you apart. And the Teen Titans come in saying like, oh, no, you won't. We'll stop you. And he just like puts them in a whirlwind and sends them away. And Superboy manages to get in one good punch on Hell before he's like, all right, well, you know what? I'm here to make a new Krypton, if you must ask. And to do so, I need all these humans alive. So I'm not going to kill everyone here yet. We cut over to the Titans, who Bart has managed to use his powers to reverse the cyclone and get them out of it. And then they come back to the fight, and Hell's like, all right, I'm done with this. You're bugging me. And he just teleports himself and Superboy out of there to go who knows where. And that's it. So this, of course, picks up in, I think, either Superman or Supergirl, whichever one's next. And then the Teen Titans plot continues in Death of the Family, which is going to be the next issue of Teen Titans. So literally nothing continues into Superboy, just as nothing continued from Superboy. This book is such a casualty of every other book being written. Like, seriously, the Bat Family gets the drop on it in terms of, no, the Teen Titans have to go help with that. And then the Super Family, it's forced to stop its own story and just send this thing into the future. Like, there is not a plot to this book. It is just the minor little strands that form other events happen in this book. Do I like this particular issue? Not really. It's not doing anything. This is just setting up, here's why Superboy's in Hell on Earth. And then, like, ending the other event that I haven't gotten to see. That's the part that's pissing me off the most, is that this is set 3 months from now. Like, after issue 16 of Legion Lost, can I finally understand what in the hell they're talking about? Why? That's just poor planning. More so than anything else. It's editorial just being like, what's our lowest selling book out of this list of things? Superboy. All right, whatever your plot is, Tom DeFalco, get rid of it. So no, I'm going to give this one like a 5. It's not good. It's just not a book. It is a tie-in. This is a permanent tie-in book. And it suffers all the more for it. Green Lantern Corps number 14, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Fernando Pasarin. This is the next part of Rise of the Third Army, and we open up with Guy literally fighting against the Third Army. Last issue we know that the one member of the Green Lantern team was torn apart, absorbed into the Third Army, and now the rest of the Corps is just fighting against them, making all these fused constructs, trying to like squish them, crush them, do whatever they can. And it looks like they might have them on the outs, but one of the Third Army members is able to literally dig through the construct, rip it apart, and break out. And we see that the Guardians are able to see through the Third Army's eyes, and they're like, wow, look at all the destruction we're causing across all of the Green Lantern books. Better keep going. So they keep on trying to control the Third Army guys, but it's no use. They explode out and just start attacking every member of the Corps that's with Guy. And Guy's able to like punch a few of them off, but every other member has their arms ripped off as to remove the rings, their hearts exploded out, and completely absorbed into the Third Army. And we see the Guy is the last man standing. Literally none of his group have survived. And he's like, oh, no, I'm sorry. That's on me. My bad. So he starts jolting away at near like light speed away from the Third Army guys. And we cut back to the Guardians, who are like, well, we can't really keep up with light speed. That is kind of an issue. But, you know, maybe Guy Gardner just did us a favor by letting his entire team die. That might work out for us after all. So they call in the whole reason the guy split from the rest of his like job he was supposed to be doing last issue was because of the mass psychotic killer named Czar, who Guy thought would be like kidnapping his family. And the Guardians say like, hey Czar, so did you get through doing the thing? And Czar's like, yeah, can I go kill Guy now? And it's like, actually no, you can't. We're going to use him for something else, but eventually you will. But you're going to wait until we tell you to, okay? And Czar's like, all right, whatever, sure. So we see Guy makes it to Earth, or rather he calls down little bubbles to Earth. I don't think he's actually there. And he picks up every member of his family and brings them to the Justice League headquarters. And he's like, hey, guys, someone might be coming to kill you. You're going to stay with the Justice League for like a week until I deal with this. Okay, cool, bye. So then we cut over to Salak and Kilowog. And Kilowog comes in, talking to Salak, being like, hey, any reason that my new recruit, like, pool has gotten so small? And Salak's like, what are you talking about? It's literally been like the same amount as it should always be. There were like 14 people who I have registered here as coming in new to the squad. And he's just like, okay, well, my instincts are saying that we're running a bit dry. So they go down to the foundry where all the new rings are kept and whatnot, and we see that they're basically just being kept in stasis. And Salak does some digging, and he's like, as it turns out, we're in a stasis here, and no rings are allowed to leave Oa, and that was instituted by the Guardians. Also, probably shouldn't be saying this, but during that whole Alpha Lantern thing last arc, I did some digging into where they got the footage of John snapping the Green Lantern's neck, and turns out it was a heavily edited footage that came from the Guardians as well. So I think the Guardians are doing something not so cool, and they just say, all right, let's keep it between us until we can figure out what's up. And I sent down a Green Lantern to Earth to go find Hal Jordan. So then we cut to a Star Sapphire. It's Fatality, just going to cut to the chase. They don't show it's Fatality, but Fatality shows up, and she just starts flying away somewhere. And then we go to John Stewart, who is still following a tiny little piece of Mogo, who's trying to find Iron Giant style the rest of Mogo so he can like reassemble. And as he makes it there, he's attacked by Fatality, who I guess they have a history. I don't know it, but I guess they do. So anyway, Guy finally makes it back to Oa, and he's like, hey, I'm here. Should I talk to the Guardians? And Salak's like, yeah, you're going to need to talk to the Guardians. Like, prepare for the worst. And Guy makes the long trip down, and the Guardians are like, okay, so not only did you let your entire corps, like your entire group here, die, you also abandoned the mission that we put you on to protect, like, that group that was going to sign a peace treaty. And, hey, wouldn't you know it, they're all dead. They're all dead, and it's definitely not because of Czar. It's not because we sicked Czar on them. Well, I don't know why you're thinking that, but that's not what happened. They died because they wanted peace, and you were supposed to protect them. You are a bad Lantern. And Guy's like, okay, I mean, I don't think so. But, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, I guess. And it's just like, all right, here's the deal. We want you to retire rather than firing you outright. So that way, maybe you can leave with a little bit of honor. I think that's fair. Everyone else think that? Yeah, I think that's fair. And guys, like, those things that attacked us, like, with it, we're not ready for them. You need to be, like, prepared. It's like, yep, nope, we're dealing with it. But they're not a problem. You are right now. Okay, cool. You give us your ring. And Guy looks all defiant and proud, and he's like, all right, yeah, here's my ring. I hereby resign from the Green Lantern Corps. And the Guardians take his ring and then send him back to Earth, and he ends up in his garage just next to his motorcycle, and that's where we leave off. It's good. It's a solid issue. I think it forwards the Guy plot, which is, of course, the event plot. It needed to get there. It does a extra little thing of like, okay, John's just off in deep space now. He's not going to be around. Guy is out of the Corps because the Guardians are good at adapting their plans, I guess. And, of course, Czar will come back at some point. So, no, it was a solid issue. I definitely enjoyed pretty much all of it. The only thing that I would critique is that the opening scene with the Third Army felt like it went on a little bit long. Like it was just kind of a gore fest for a little bit of showing everyone change. But I think that if you're not reading the other Green Lantern books, that is a necessity. Like you need to be able to know what's what their actual threat is if you're not doing all of the books. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it like a 7.5. It's good. It's solid. It is probably the low point of the arc, not in quality, but just in terms of like mood. Like, okay, this is where everyone's at their lowest. He's lost his core. He's lost his ring. What will Guy do? And yeah, no, I'm just looking to see how we get out of this little conundrum. So, solid issue. Looking forward to the next one. Deathstroke number 14, written by Rob Liefeld and Joshua Williamson, art by Eduardo Pansica. This is the next part of Hawkman Wanted, but in the last issue of Hawkman Wanted over in Green Arrow, the issue ended with Hawkman and Green Arrow going into a building to find out where I think it was Shayera was. That's not here. There's no Green Arrow. He's not going into a... This is not the next part of Hawkman Wanted. This is just some other story where Deathstroke happens to meet Hawkman. Anyway, so Deathstroke's looking for Hawkman. He's scouting the city because he got a message from somebody because he's trying to... After he was humiliated in the last Deathstroke issue, he was beaten down. He's trying to figure out, okay, I need something high profile. What do you got? And this guy comes up and says, oh, it's aliens, it's Hawk people, and we want them. And he's like, nah, I'm not dealing with aliens anymore. That last time was stupid. They're literally calling out Lobo Hunt as being stupid. But then the guy points out, oh, he has nth metal. And he's like, that's what my suit's made out of. And I have a lot of questions about my suit. More specifically, why my suit do what it do. So he decides to take on the case, but he doesn't actually want to catch Hawkman, and turn him in. He just literally wants to ask some questions. Like, he's doing it pro bono. So anyway, he's looking around, and then he gets blindsided by some Thanagarian soldier who shows up and just like, oh, you're working with Hawkman, aren't you? And he's like, no, I'm not. And they beat the crap out of each other until finally Deathstroke manages to get his sword into the Thanagarian's chest and kills him. And then as he realizes that Hawkman was literally flying by right then, he's like, crap, gotta make this quick. Jumps off the building, grabs onto Hawkman, and of course, they start to fight because Hawkman's like, oh, you're trying to kill me too, but it ain't gonna work because I got Green Arrow. Where's Green Arrow? He doesn't say that, but he may as well. So anyway, at that point, Deathstroke manages to get the upper hand, and he's like, hey, I'm not here for the job. I literally just have some questions. And I'm also here to help you because I hear you're being hunted. You okay with that? And Hawkman's like, yeah. And he punches Deathstroke, and he's like, and I don't need your help. Despite the fact he totally does. And so Hawkman starts to fly away. Deathstroke gets a grapple on him. They continue to fight, and Deathstroke's like, okay, I want to test out a theory I have real quick. And he takes out a gun and shoots Hawkman in the neck. But as the bullet's about to hit him, the nth metal armor spreads and stops the bullet before it gets. He's like, aha, that gives me some info as to how your nth metal works. So at that point, Hawkman's like, what do you want? And he's like, I just want answers. So they land on a building and then just talk. And basically, Hawkman explains, okay, yeah, it's some magic metal thing. It came from my home planet. It shouldn't be on Earth, but I guess that somehow some of the miners got a hand on some of it, and it came to Earth because, sure, why not? And then Deathstroke's like, okay, but mine doesn't move like yours does, and also I don't have wings. And he's like, well, I mean, my alien DNA is what gives me wings. That's not the suit. That's the DNA. But also, maybe your armor was like mixed with some other alloy, so it's not as pure. I don't know. But either way, that's basically the gist of it. And Deathstroke's like, cool, I've got all I need. Anyway, see ya. And then he's just like, okay, well, bye. But before they can leave, they're hit by a rocket, and the whole roof explodes. They get up, and they look around at who did it. And turns out it's a bunch of Thanagarians, and then Xerxes and that one other guy who I think attacked Hawkman like 2 issues ago. And they're like, okay, well, I guess we have to die before we let them have this armor. Otherwise, they'll do evil things with it. And he's like, oh, there's going to be plenty of dying, Hawkman, but not by us. That's the issue. Okay. Hawkman once was already a stretch of an idea when they said it was an event. Because it's not an event. It's crossover. It's a very light crossover, and fine if you want to just label it as a crossover. But here's the thing that's bugging me the most, is that this is labeled as Part 3. Like, it is most definitely Hawkman Wanted Part 3. And somehow, despite the fact that we literally have seen the connecting tissue of Hawkman was like flying just over the ocean, and then in Green Arrow he made it into the city, and now in the city Green Arrow is gone and he's replaced with Deathstroke. Now I think Hawkman itself is going to be the next part of this, so I'm curious to say whether or not we're going to follow the Green Arrow part, the Deathstroke part. They're going to somehow meet up. They're going to explain what happened to Green Arrow for a whole issue. I don't know. More importantly, I don't care. This issue wasn't great. This was basically just like the most tenuous link of, oh, hey, Hawkman's got Nth Metal and Deathstroke has Nth Metal. Let's have an issue about that. But when it says about that, it quite literally is just Hawkman restating his origins and saying, this is probably how you get your hands on it. Anyway, bye. So, yeah. Poor excuse for a tie-in, if even. Definitely not worth cover price. Overall, I would probably give this one I give it like a 5. And it's not because, it looks fine and so be it on the other stuff, but, it completely stops Deathstroke's story. And there's one panel in here, I gotta say. What the Thanagarian who attacks Deathstroke says, "Where did you get that armor?" And Deathstroke responds with, "I don't know why, but I feel a your mama joke coming on." 5 seems a bit too genuine, or generous, looking back now, but I'll give it a 5. So yeah, we'll see where Hawkman Wanted goes, if it continues the story, if this is completely useless, but I'm leaning towards the latter. Grifter number 14, written by Rob Liefeld and Frank Tieri, art by Marat. Mychaels. Last issue we left off with Grifter breaking into Stormwatch HQ, stealing some data and getting teleported out, but getting teleported out with Midnighter. And then this issue picks up with Grifter landing in a desert, and he's like, where am I? Oh, geez, I bet the ship sent me to some random location because I uploaded a virus into it. Whoopsie. And then through the portal also comes Midnighter, saying well, that's not your biggest problem. And they start fighting each other. Grifter pulls out some weird blaster thing, blasts back Midnighter, and he's like, last time I fought Midnighter, he had the upper hand, because I genuinely had no idea what I'm doing. But things are different now. I know how to fight him, so I can do this. I have to beat him like an animal. And they roll around for a little bit before they get teleported out of the desert and right above the ocean. And we go back into Stormwatch HQ and basically get the explanation from Apollo and Engineer, who are like, oh, the virus caused it so that they're teleporting randomly across the world, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. Engineer, you got to get in there and fix the code or whatever. And they're also talking to the ship at the same time, who's like, I feel weird. So they're in the ocean, giant shark attacks them, and they both realize they need to team up for a second to avoid becoming lunch. But literally before they do that, they're flashed out and end up in front of a giant freight train on top of one of those really tall bridges. You know, the ones in was it Stand By Me? Was that the movie? I don't know. Anyway, they continue fighting. Midnighter kicks him. They start falling to their doom, and then they're teleported out again, this time to Tokyo. And this is where they end up. The rest of the issues in Tokyo. And Grifter's like, last time I fought him, I would have ended up like Midnighter is now, with my face through a windshield. But something's different this time. I'm faster and better and stronger than him. I can beat him. And back at Stormwatch HQ, they are like, okay, I think we can maybe get close to fixing this now, just to give a little tie-in thing. But it says that they still have no idea whether or not this will work or not, whatever fix they're trying. So then back to the fight, he's like, yeah, no, I've totally got an advantage. And he pulls out a gun, and he's actually able to land on a shot in Midnighter's shoulder. So clearly he is at least a little bit better. back in HQ, they finally purged the virus, and they're like, okay, teleporter back online. Let's get them both back up here so we can give Grifter a piece of our mind. And they activate the teleporter. They both they both disappear, but only Midnighter shows back up. And Apollo's like, what? Where's Grifter? What happened? And the ship's like, I didn't want Grifter back here. He made me feel bad. I don't want him here, so I've sent him to be someone else's problem. And then we cut to Belle Reve Security Prison, aka the home of the Suicide Squad, where Deadshot is talking to Amanda saying like, oh, someone broke into our security systems and got some important information, a la what Grifter did 2 issues ago. If it's who I think it is, then we're in for some big trouble, Deadshot. And then, of course, Grifter teleports in right in front of them. And Waller's like, Grifter, you got a lot of nerve showing up here after what you did. And he's like, hey, Waller, I didn't want to be here at all, but I'm not going to leave in a body bag. Okay, so this issue felt like the lightest conceivable issue. Like they had that cliffhanger of like, oh no, Midnighter also teleported with them. And then like they wanted to wrap it up after like a page or two, but they were forced to stretch it for an entire issue because they teleported 4 times, they fought the entire time, and then nothing of value was gained. Literally nothing happened this issue. This was a net 0 across the board. I cannot overstate that Grifter did not gain any information, make any new enemies, learn anything new. He got nothing. And on the other side of things, Midnighter and Stormwatch, same deal. Nothing happened. This issue may as well have just... The last one should have ended with him teleporting out and then ending up in Belle Reve without Midnighter following. The exact same amount of stuff would happen. It would just be 1 issue shorter. So yeah, not a good issue. And also art-wise, it just felt very empty. Like when they go to the desert, nothing's there. They go to the ocean, nothing's there. They go to this bridge where the train is, nothing's there. And even when they get to Tokyo, this busy-ass city, all the backgrounds they show, nothing is there. Like, this felt like an issue that was made in like a day, if even. So, yeah. It's weak. It's a 5. And the only reason... You know what? No, it's a 4.5. I was going to say the only reason it isn't beneath a 5 is because it doesn't do it like anything that's that bad. But honestly, people were charged for this. This was $2.99, I think. This is not okay for $2.99. It's just lazy is what it is. It's not a good issue. It's not good writing. I genuinely have no idea why this issue exists in the first place. The only credit I'll give it is that the art that is there at least is decent and I can follow the fight scenes. But honestly, that is so minor of a compliment, it's not even worth it. Suicide Squad number 14, written by Adam Glass, art by Fernando Dagnino. The last issue we had the battle against Regulus of the Basilisk organization, and Deadshot sacrificing himself in order to kill Regulus. And we cut to Deadshot's funeral, which apparently has full military honors, because I guess he was a Marine at some point. And the Suicide Squad, or rather just Harley, Captain Boomerang, and Waller are the only people in attendance. And Waller's kind of just chewing out Deadshot the whole time. Like, man, he took the coward's way out. Like, screw it. He didn't like his deal and he just bailed. He's not a full member of this team. He's weak in my book. But before the scene can continue anymore, it starts raining. But it's not actually rain. It's some sort of Joker toxin, whatever. Because Harley is immune to it and the Joker shows up. And Joker's immediately like, hey, Harley, hi, we need to talk. And immediately Harley's like, oh, it's so good to see you again. And Joker's like, oh, hey, by the way, you have something on your face. And she's like, my face? And then he just starts beating the crap out of her, like just straight punched her in the face and all that, and starts calling her out on basically having a relationship with Deadshot, however weird that was. Also, how she went and got his face in a previous issue. And it's like, oh, I knew it smelled like your cheap cologne. But anyway, he's like, okay, well, because I knew that you like kind of were stooping on me, here's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna get some revenge. So he walks over to Boomerang and is just like, oh, this guy, maybe? No, you're not into him? How about Waller? I don't think you like her either. Well, there's only one person who deserves my wrath, and it's the guy you were stooping with. And he goes for the corpse of Deadshot in the coffin, and Harley pulls a gun and basically says, like, leave him alone or I'll shoot. And he's like, oh, I'll leave him alone if you do this one thing for me. And she's like, all right, what's that? And then the events of Batman number 13 happen, where she poses as Red Hood and blah, blah, blah. Go see that issue if you want. It's not covered here. So at that point, we see everyone is woken up. They're back at Belle Reve. And it's like, okay, well, Harley's gone, and we can't even begin to predict where the Joker took her, so we'll just wait until something happens on that front. Anyway, let's go deal with the bunch of stuff that we need to go deal with. And they go and talk to the scientist that was working with Basilisk, Dr. Visyak, who is now working on the Resurrection Man project because they have the hand of Mitch Shelley, and they're just basically trying to figure out if they can get it to regenerate a full person again. So Waller's happy about that. Then she goes into the room where Iceberg is regenerating his arm because he lost it in the previous fight. And now his new arm is 100% ice. And he's like, what in the hell is happening to me? And they're like, we don't know. We're going to look into it. Then we go over to King Shark because he's being deprogrammed from Basilisk training, as Iceberg will have to do soon. And he is clearly not enjoying it, but out of the shadows comes Yo-Yo, who's like, hey, King Shark, I'm just here to tell you that I know the truth. I know the real reason why you're here. And then that scene ends. And then we go to El Diablo's cell, where he is super pissed off that he was worshipping Regulus, even if he was brainwashed or whatever. And he like lights up his fire or whatever. And he's immediately extinguished by his cell's anti-fire measures. And so they say, like, all right, you know what? I've lost more than ever. I'm in the pits of despair. I'm going to go ahead and stop praying for God's help, and I'm just going to go full on in. Lucifer, give me your hellfire. And he seems to get some new sort of black fire thing coming on. And then we go to deep in the bowels of Belle Reve, where Black Spider, because of his traitorous ways, is being held up in a cell with lasers trained on him. And Waller comes up basically saying, like, why'd you do it, man? There's no way you actually believe in what Basilisk was saying about, like, the superpowers and all that stuff. And he's like, no, I totally believe in that. Like, you know as well as I do that those superheroes, one day, they will, like, exterminate all of us. We will have to bow to them. The only way to stop it is to stop it now. Stop it while it's still early. And those who don't try to stop it will all disappear or die. And so as Waller's walking out, he's like, you know I'm right. You know I'm right. So then we cut over to after Batman 13, where Harley's walking away from her task for Joker, and she's like, okay, Joker, I'm done now. The deal's a deal. You leave me alone. Okay, bye. And as she tries to leave, Joker's like, I wonder, are you Harley or are you back to Dr. Quinzel? And she's like, I don't know what you mean. Goodbye now. And Joker manages to get a chain noose around her neck and pull her up tight so she's choking out. And she's like, well, why don't you just hang out for a few, Harley? Ha 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 ha. It's okay. I mean, as a Death of the Family tie-in, it's I don't think it was here's the thing. I know, because I know what happens in the future of the New 52, that this is what leads to Harley becoming independent. This is kind of her point where she becomes the character that we all know her as now. So with that in mind, I think that it is a interesting story. It's a good way to start it off, where Harley's like, no, you're kind of a bit too much right now, Joker. So I like that. I think that it's a solid setup. However, they don't have that established in the story that she is, like, completely done with Joker. She's, like, kind of still in and out. So obviously there's potential in this particular issue. It does just feel like kind of okay, the last arc is done. Let's get our bearings real quick so we know where all the characters are. We know what everyone is doing. And setting up the Joker's probably going to be the overarching villain to the next couple issues, though how much of that's going to be the team as a whole compared to just Harley, I guess we'll see. I'm going to give this one I'm going to give it a 6.5. And the only reason that I hold back from a 7 is just because it does feel very, while it's supposed to be tying into Death of the Family, it still feels very separate. It still feels very different from the event as a whole. Like, Harley has nothing to do with the whole Joker wants to take out the Bat Family thing. It just happens to be Joker's active right now, so we're going to use Harley. Not bad, but definitely not. It's a tie-in for the sake of why not, rather than here's a good reason. Team 7, number 2, written by Justin Jordan, art by Julius Gopez and Ron Frenz. This is yet another installation of the Black Diamond probability. And we open with a whole bunch of Eclipso-possessed people coming out and attacking Team 7. And they open fire and just start mowing them all down until finally Bronson comes in his full Iron Man suit and just like, well, if you guys are running out of bullets, I'll take care of this. And he just starts plowing through all of them. Gives them enough time to have Dinah try to open up the nearby door. She has to hack into it to do so. Finally, she manages to get in. Bronson, he's still dealing with the entire group. They're like, Bronson, we're closing the door. Come on, get in. And he uses some rocket boosters that I guess he doesn't know how they work to get into the door in time. And they're just like, okay, all right. Well, is everyone all right? Cool. Someone go take care of Bronson down there. Everyone else, let's figure out what's going on. So Kurt comes back to Bronson. And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. I just didn't know the instruction manual had rockets like that. So they go through, they're like, all right, we got to figure out what's been going on. There were 218 people on this fortress, and we have to assume all of them are infected. The only place that I think might be even kind of safe is the medical center. So maybe we need to check that place out. But first things first, we need to get to a comms center. So that's 4 floors down, and Bronson once again uses his suit to literally carve a hole through the floor to get down there. And he's like, all right, well, I'm almost out of juice on this thing, so let's not do that anymore. So they start watching some video surveillance, and one thing in particular is from the medical center, and it's a guy who I guess used to work at Arkham Asylum, and he's like, hey, we have this little serum thing that we're testing out, and it is a Jekyll Hyde serum, and we're only using the Jekyll part. Because sure they are. And they use it on this dude, and he was actually the terrorist from the 0th issue who was going to crash like a blimp into a stadium or something. It's him, and his name is Akara. And they use it on him, and immediately all of his mental disorders just disappear. And he's like, oh, I'm so willing to help you, doctor. But then immediately afterwards, he transforms into an Eclipso zombie and starts attacking everybody. And they're like, okay, well, so the Jekyll serum or whatever, which they specifically mentioned to tune into All-Star Western to find out more about, clearly did this. So how did this get spread to everybody else? Well, they show that it was weaponized, and it was turned into something that was used on everybody in the whole place all at once, like a airborne pathogen. And so Grifter's like, oh, so we're all going to turn into these things. And it's like, no. It was so diluted or something, it has already worn out, like, just to make us not worry about it. But then they say, like, all right, here's the other big issue. Apparently, the flight path of this floating fortress is now being directed towards the country of Genosha. And Akara is the son of a Genosian national who rebelled against the current leader. So they have reason to worry that this thing is going to crash down on that place, or that they're going to be able to use it as a weapon. it's neither here nor there. So then we cut into the medical center and we see that the doctor is actually still uninfected. And Akara is standing there with like some jagged fingernails, and he's like, "Oh, you have to finish all of this work. You have to make it ready, and then I'll kill you." And he's like, "Don't you mean or?" And he's like, "No, I'm definitely going to kill you. Question is, how quickly am I going to do it?" Mwahaha. So they like, all right, comm center is busted. We need to figure out how to stop this from getting to Gamora. We got to head down to the medical center to see if there's any sort of thing down there. So they start moving their way down. All the zombie people, like the possessed ones, are literally ripping through the walls in order to get down to them. They begin just fighting them all off as they make their way down there as quickly as possible. And then when they arrive, they see inside is just Akara and the doctor. And it's like, wow, hello, especially you, Amanda Waller. How's it going? It's such a pleasure to see you. And so they're opening up on all the zombies until they can get the door closed. And then they turn on Akara and just open fire. And he is immune to their gunfire. Just bounces right off him. And he's like, well, let me show you what I got. And he kicks Grifter like the full way across the room. Deathstroke's sword breaks against him, and nothing is seemingly able to stop him until finally Bronson in his big old Iron Man suit comes up, knocks him out with one punch, and Waller goes, talks to the doctor, says like, hey, is there anything that can hurt this guy, like, and take him down for good? And the doctor's like, well, I think he might be vulnerable to a specific frequency of light. And he pulls out this little like light bulb, and he's like, I just have to find the frequency. And so Bronson gets Akara in a headlock. Waller lights up the light bulb, and it drains all of his power for at least a little while. And so he tells Bronson, get out of your Iron Man suit. I know that there is a fuel cell inside there that can be ready to explode if we shoot it. So he gets out while still headlocking Akara. They explode the fuel cell and seemingly kill Akara. And everyone's like, all right, well, we just have to go around and flash this light bulb at everybody, and that should burn it out of them. And then the doctor chimes in being like, oh, actually, you guys thought this thing was going to Gamora, but it's going to the nearby Sentinel Island, where inside is it's the Black Diamond. It's the Black Diamond. It has Eclipso in it, and he's all just hyping it up, saying how it's God's vengeance and blah, blah, blah. Okay. I don't feel like I understood half of this issue, but at the same time, I feel like it also over-explained it. Like, it just started going down this stuff of like, oh, but Gamora and these nationals, and we're flying to this country, and they can use it as a weapon. But then, like, at the same time, it's just like, okay, but none of that's actually happening. It's all this other thing. And I don't know. It just felt like a mess. It just felt like overstuffed. Like it was trying to do too much all in one issue. And maybe it is. I don't know. I know the series does not go very long, but it's, yeah, no, I guess I'm disappointed. I don't expect much from the whole Black Diamond stuff. Whatever's going to come of it comes of it, but it's not doing anything really. Like it's not even, I don't know. It's so hard to review or even like be introspective on this issue because I doubt there's anything beyond the surface layer. It's just, hey, here's a team who can shoot stuff and they're fighting for the world. And even then, it's kind of foggy as to who it actually is. So overall, I'm going to give this one like a 5. And the only reason it's sitting there in the middle is like, I don't know if it's good or bad. It's just kind of bleh. It's just there. It's taking up space on a shelf. We'll see if it can change now that we've actually got the Eclipso thing named. Legion Lost number 14, written by Tom DeFalco, art by Pete Woods and Ronan Cliquet. Last issue left off with a big old dude coming down named, I think it was Thrax. I'll get to it later. Anyway, Conqueror coming down and Legion preparing to fight him. So we open up with Tyrock. He starts screaming at the guy immediately, which is, of course, his power. And we get a whole breakdown. Like, it's been an hour since, like, the beginning of the last issue. but like only seconds since the end of last issue. So yeah, we're all trying to figure out what's going on still. And we see that Wildfire is still okay. He crashed down to Earth pretty hard, but he's still okay. He will survive. And the captain of the science police or whatever who showed up, he's like, wow, Wildfire and Dawnstar are in a relationship? How does that work? And Tellus is like, don't be judging them. So anyway, at that point, whole fight starts breaking out between the Legion trying to take down, here it is, Thrax and Dagor. Dagor's like the dude, Thrax is the dragon. So fight starts breaking out, but it is quite obvious that they are very overpowered. So Science Police guy calls in reinforcements, and we see over at the apartment of Detective Jocelyn Lore is a priority alert going off, and it's just like, wow, this is an emergency beacon. It must be in order for them to want to break my cover. And then we see the same beacon is going off in the mountains of Mongolia, where Harvest and his crew is like, well, time to go. So the Legion continues to fight on, and we see all of their thought processes, though, like throughout this whole battle, where Timberwolf is like, I don't know if I can fight with my injuries, but I gotta keep going. And Chameleon Girl's like, I don't know if I should be fighting. Should it be whatever my Legion team wants to do, or whatever my Echo Handler wants to do? The Echo Handler being the Science Police guy. And this whole time, Dagger's like, well, did you guys forget I can read your thoughts? Like, I'm literally able to hear all that. Anyway, so he's like, oh, well, all of your concerns, your petty whatevers are beneath me. Everything must be prepared for when my master arrives. So at that point, he digs a hole down into the earth and lets out a whole bunch of probes, which all start developing into warbots, I guess. Like there's like thousands of them. So immediately Timberwolf's like, well, this is my kind of battle where I can just let loose. And he starts tearing apart all the robots that he can, along with the rest of the Legion coming in and trying to do as much as they can as well. But again, they're overwhelmed. They are too much in it. And then all of a sudden, Harvest shows up and he's like, hey, we're fighting on the same time this time. And they're all like, no, we are not. We hate you, dude. You murdered children. And it's like, yeah, and this guy's going to murder the whole planet, which kind of gets in my whole way of taking over the planet. So, enemy of my enemy and whatnot. And everyone on the team's still like, no, we're not going to fight with you. We're going to punch you in between punching him. Until Tyrock's just like, look, if it was just us on the line, I'd agree. But this is the whole planet. We need to swallow our pride and work with them. So they are working with Harvest, except for Chameleon Girls who are like, nope, this is a deal with the devil. I ain't doing it. But before she can attack Harvest, Lord Dagor attacks her. So she's kind of out of the fight anyway. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn, Jocelyn Lure makes a pit stop and gets Superboy and the Ravagers. More so just Superboy, but the Ravagers jump in as well. And this takes place after Ravagers number 6 and 7, which number 7 isn't out yet. So, whatever. They're literally talking about like, wow, that whole thing just happened. Isn't that crazy? And then she jumps in and grabs Superboy and Caitlin Fairchild and Ridge. So anyway, they come into the fight. And they're like, whoa, Harvest is here. Let's kick his ass. And they're just like, no, wait, hold on. Harvest is technically fighting with us right now. And it's just like, okay, fine, whatever. We'll fight on the same side. But then we're going to kick Harvest's ass. And then Superboy, he's like, no, I'm not waiting for that. And he goes over to charge Harvest. Harvest is like, hey, Superboy, look, I've been waiting for you to show up. I want to show you something. And he says something into Kryptonian. And all of a sudden, Superboy is under Harvest's control. And everyone's like, oh, crap. He could do that whenever he wanted? Jesus, that's kind of a big deal. And we see Warblade is fighting next to Superboy. And Warblade's like, good to see you're on our side now, Superboy. And Superboy just launches him into space. And, you know, the fight continues on. Caitlin Fairchild's like, oh, well, I guess this is our fight now, Ridge. Let's get into it so that way we have a chance to take down Harvest. And the Science Police guy is like, I don't even understand what in the hell is going on. Who are these people? I just asked for Detective Jocelyn Lore. Who are the rest of them? And Tellus gives like a quick thing of the entire thing of the culling, to which point I feel for the man. And he's like, okay, I guess I got it now. And Harvest calls out like, ah, yes, my dear Nathaniel, now you understand. And he's like, how do you know my name? And he's like, ah, the answer will shock and surprise you, but we're not getting to it yet. As we see the hole that Lord Dagor like dug underground, it spits up a giant space laser into the sky, and it's like, ah, at last, we are finally able to call for my master. And he puts down one, like, I don't know, like a syringe pretty much down to the earth. It ejects something, and all of a sudden this huge machinery starts springing up out of the ground. And Gates is like, ah, Jesus, man, Timberwolf, we gotta go. Timberwolf's like, what are you talking about? Why would we leave everybody else? He's like, you don't understand. I recognize the machine. Remember how I said I got these burns on my body and I was like lost in time for a little bit there? This is what causes the burns. We are literally all going to die here. And that's where we leave off. I mean, they made it big. It is literally just one extended fight scene, but like they brought in everybody. And knowing that this ends at issue 16, I get it. You know, it's the last hurrah. They want to bring in everybody. They want to tie up some loose ends. I get it. However, this Superboy and Ravagers, they needed to schedule better because this is supposed to happen after next month's Ravagers, and it happens, this whole arc, like up until issue 16, happens before this month's Superboy. None of this works. All of this was editorial, just being like, just do whatever. No one's even reading these books. And to be fair, yeah, but still, it is something that I think should have been at least a little bit better worked out. So in terms of the action, I do want to point out, I really do enjoy the art style. This has actually been the only time that I've actually thought that Harvest looks okay, and that's saying something. So yeah, I can't recommend it, but it's also not the worst. It's just kind of falling victim to its own, hey, we have to end the series in 2 months. Do what you got to do. So I'm going to say it's like a 6. And that mainly just comes from the fact of it's just an extended fight scene. It looks good, and it's cool to see literally everything all together, but it's just an extended fight scene. The Ravagers, issue 6, written by Howard Mackie, art by Ian Churchill and Tyler Kirkham. Last issue left off with everyone finally coming together, being a team, saying, we are the Ravagers, and we're going to go beat up Harvest and Nowhere, and we're going to kick all their asses. And this issue picks up with basically them in a training room, and it's Niles Calder over the intercom, and he's like, now I know this seems a lot like what Nowhere did, but it's not, because you guys can leave whenever you want, okay? Just remember that. You can leave whenever you want. And then he continues to talk to somebody else that we can't see, saying like, good Lord, I hope they don't leave, because I have no contingency on if they actually choose that. So whoever he's talking to says like, all right, let's just get a breakdown of everybody's stuff. More specifically, Superboy. Apparently Superboy was made as like the thing that could stop Ravagers if they rebelled. So he's like the backup plan, and he doesn't know much about Superboy in general. And then the rest of them, how they were not finished with their training and they weren't finished being like analyzed and such like that, so that Niles Calder doesn't really know anything about them. Beast Boy, he has something to do with the color red. It's the red, but they don't know that. No one knows how Terra's powers work, and Ridge is just like a genetic freak, and they really have no idea what the depths of his powers are. So at the end of this training thing, we see none of them are really doing well together. They're all kind of accidentally hitting each other until Superboy comes in and takes it down, just takes down the threat. And they're like, all right, well, decent run, guys. Maybe this time try thinking. All right, let's go again. And Kaylin's in the room, and she's like, no. They need a break. They're tired. I'm calling this. They're taking a break. And he's like, no, we gotta, all right, fine, whatever. I guess you could leave whenever you want, son of a bitch. And we see that the person that he's talking to is Tim Drake, Red Robin, and he's like, well, I'm trusting you because of your past success, but if you need anything, just call the Teen Titans. So anyway, we go to Venice Beach, California, where they say something about like how they're doing. I mean, it says here, I adopted some nowhere tech to camouflage us, but like they also say that they could be a bunch of street performers. So I don't know how they're supposed to be camouflaged and also look like street performers. But regardless, Caitlin says like, go have fun, go do whatever. It's a relaxing day. And everyone's like, what is fun? And he's okay, you guys need some free will. We're going to work on that today. Free will, everybody. So they go out on their own way briefly. Caitlin and Superboy have a chat just being like, oh yeah, you're helping them make memories. Just like you kind of made me some memories. You remember that when you worked at Nowhere? And Caitlin's like, dude, do we have to do that right now? And he's like, guess not, but whatever. We'll talk about it. So he talks about him wanting to join the Ravagers. She's like, they don't trust you. And he's like, yeah, I know. And then that's it. Ridge, this is the first time he's really looked in a mirror. And he's like, dear Lord, I'm a freak. And Tara comes up being like, hey, no, we're all freaks. It's okay. Like, we'll take care of them and then we'll figure out what's going on. And she like gets all nice and close with Ridge, friendly like, but then Beast Boy's just like, that's my girl. What's she doing with that guy? And then all of a sudden his arm freaks out for a second. And it says, see what's happening in Animal Man and Swamp Thing, aka the Rot World event, which doesn't make any goddamn sense because nothing happened to Beast Boy over the course of that series. Like quite literally, he was fine. He was one of the few that was. So I don't get it. Anyway, they're like, Beast Boy, you cool? And he's like, yeah, I'm cool. That was just a one-panel tie-in. And they're about to order some food, and Thunder's like, oh, my priority is finding my sister, and that's the most important thing. But before he's even done talking, Caitlin's on the phone, because apparently Niles got a distress call that Nowhere is going after a new, like, meta girl, and they're going to kidnap her and kill her family. And they got to get in there first before that happens. And Caitlin's like, they're not ready. And he's like, well, maybe they shouldn't have gone on break then, you goddamn idiot. And so they get into the plane and make their way to Cypress Hills, Brooklyn, New York. And as they get out, they find where she is. And it's like, okay, maybe Caitlin should do the knocking since she's the only one that doesn't look absolutely insane. And as they make their way to the house, they're like, well, good thing we beat Nowhere here. And then they are proceeded to be attacked by Nowhere. More specifically, it is Windshear and Bright Eyes, who I believe were the two who escaped along with them at the very beginning of this book and then proceeded to go their own way. So that's a thing. Now they're working with Nowhere, and it's just like, hey guys, Nowhere made us even stronger. Do you want to join Nowhere? And they're like, no. Do you want to join us on the good side of the Ravagers? And they're like, no. And then they just fight. And it is a lot of back and forth. At one point, they're fighting Ridge, and they're like, come on, Ridge. You were one of the best Ravagers. You were really good at stealing children and killing their families. And everyone's like, Ridge, did you really do that? And he's like, I don't want to talk about it. It's a really dark time in my life. But either way, Superboy's about to intervene. Caitlin keeps him back, and they let the Ravagers themselves beat back Windshear and Bright Eyes. And they're like, we did it, guys. We took on 2 Ravagers. And Ridge is like, we took on 2 newbies, guys. And the fact that they were newbies means that their trainers are probably, like, already here. And lo and behold, we have Warblade and Rose, who are both here, ready to attack. So, yep, that's a thing. I don't dislike this issue. I think it like last issue was very clearly the wrap up of, okay, we're getting the team established. We're setting up like a base of operations. We're setting their motive for this. This is very much the, okay, here's their first outing. Here's their first going out, doing the thing. I like it. I think it's a solid enough little like, all right, this is good. This is just a nice little fight. I will say that in other issues that came out this week, more in particularly Superboy and Legion Lost, this is part of some weird thing where like those issues are coming after this whole arc. It's just a mess. I don't even know where to begin with it, but this one is the one that doesn't suffer from it. This one is telling its own thing, and I enjoy it. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one I'll give it a 7. The only reason I'm holding it back is the whole Windshear Bright Eyes thing just felt a little bit dumb, and the Beast Boy thing was like very dumb. Like it was literally one panel of, they may as well have just written out in plain text, please go read Animal Man and Swamp Thing event going on now, because that's all it would have been. So yeah, it's a 7. Not bad. Definitely not great, but not bad. Demon Knights number 14, written by Paul Cornell, art by Bernard Chang. Last issue left off with the entire group down in hell, all escaping their prisons, or at least knowing that they are imprisoned and not really caring. And Jason Blood up on the surface, trying to commit suicide, but being stopped by Mordru, I think, and the Questing Queen. That sounds right. So anyway, we pick up with Jason, and he's like, oh, you can't threaten me, I'm going to commit suicide. And they're like, okay, but we can help you get into hell without killing yourself, Jason. Specifically saying, one does not simply walk into hell. And Jason's like, oh, you want to help me? Cool. And he lowers the knife, and they're like, all right, cool, now we can threaten you. So they hold him up and they grab him, and it's just like, all right, here's the thing. Questing Queen's looking for the Holy Grail. We did some perusing, some magic whatnots, and we divined that Etrigan is the most likely to come across the Holy Grail. So we need to get him. And if you change places with him, then we can easily get him. It works out for everybody. And it's like, all right, cool. So you want to do it that way? And he's like, maybe. So then we cut down into hell. Etrigan was talking to Xanadu, and Xanadu's like, I don't have any magic left. You took it from me. I can't help you. And so Etrigan's like, all right, I made up my mind. I'm going to give you your magic back. And he takes this potion, shoves it down our throat, and says, like, now, you still belong to me. That's I made that happen, so don't be double-crossing me with this magic. Do whatever you think is going to work. And then we go to Shining Knight and Horsewoman, who have just been riding a horse through hell until they get to Vandal Savage, who's being tortured by his kid. And he's like, hi, these are my children. Please kill them. And at that point, they just, I'm pretty sure they, like, go to attack, but they all just disappear into dust. And they're like, oh, we'll wait in your future, Vandal. So then Algebir shows up with Exoristos, and Algebir's refusing to drink any water because he thinks that it's all a trap. So he's a little bit out of it, but everyone else is still ready to fight. And Etrigan shows up, and he's like, hey, I thought I was torturing you guys. What are you doing out? Back to your torments. And there's like, oh, now we're going to attack Etrigan. So Shining Knight makes the first move, but we cut before the battle ends, and we see Xanadu, who is just walking into the place where Merlin's body is being held. And there's like one demon guarding it, and she just uses a magic spell, turns him into dust. And just like, all right, Merlin, we got to figure out what's going on here with your body. And she goes to the orb that was given to them that has the spell of communication. Just like, I think that maybe we can use the magical link of you to Avalon and the magical link of this orb to us, and maybe we can like combine it to get to Avalon. Let's give it a shot. So Shining Knight's attacking Etrigan, and Etrigan's like, oh, you can't beat me without magic. You're just a normal person. And he keeps on saying how great he is, but Shining Knight pretty much gets the upper hand on him in a lot of ways. But then simultaneously, upstairs in the real world, they're like, all right, Jason, we're sending you to hell, and we're taking Etrigan back with us. Okay, cool. And they send in Jason with the magic spell, and then they place a tracer on him so that they're able to follow wherever Jason goes in hell. And then they also get Etrigan back out. And it's just like, all right, cool. Back in hell, we see that Jason is being held at swordplay by Shining Knight. And they're like, oh, hey, Jason, I nearly killed you. What are you doing here? And she's like, oh, I came down to help you guys out. So also Etrigan had very stupidly given away the location of Madame Xanadu. So it's like, oh, you know where she is? Cool, let's go get her. This is really easy. Maybe too easy. So up on Earth, Etrigan's being tortured by the Questing Queen and Mordru. And basically he gives up the whole plan, where it's just like, yes, okay, here was the plan. I was going to give the place to Lucifer, and then he would allow me to remain free, and I would do all this stuff. Like, it's the whole plot we already heard. But then we see Lucifer also knows the plot, and it's just be like, yeah, but I'm going to just go in and conquer the place anyway, where it's like, I don't know. I think that Etrigan's plan was a way to get free from Lucifer. It's like when she opens a portal to Avalon, my former comrades, who Lord Lucifer, at my request, was allowed to remain free, will enter it seeking to escape. They will either lull or destroy Avalon's defenders, and my Lord Lucifer will follow with allegiance to hell and take out Avalon, and I will be rewarded. And Lucifer's like, yep, sounds good to me. So they've like, yeah, but I got my own plan as well, regardless. Everyone, we're going to go conquer a new land of the dead. So a whole bunch of demon hordes are coming after. Xanadu combines the magics, opens up a portal, and is just like, all right, cool, we can get in there. Although this does seem like maybe still part of Etrigan's plan, but regardless, I'm better at planning than he is, so I'm sure I can outplan him. Lucifer then like is looking through all the demon knights, being like, all right, well, whatever to most of them, but Exaristos, I gave her the Black Diamond, because remember, this is a tie-in to the Black Diamond probability. And I gave her that so she could take it back up to the mortal realm. So even if everybody else dies, I want her to live so that she can complete my master plan in that way. And Exaristos, as they're walking through hell trying to get to where Xanadu is, stops and talks to Shining Knight, and it's just like, hey, maybe we could get away from all this, Shining Knight, just you and me in a nice little cozy cottage out in the way of the city. And Shining Knight's like, okay, Exaristos, that sounds good. I'm not opposed, but I think that you should know, and this is where we get the full explanation here, as much as we're going to get, that Shining Knight is both man and woman. What that means, they do not elaborate. But Shining Knight is not just a woman pretending to be a man. It is actually both. And at that point, Exaristos is like, oh, okay, well, I'm not as interested. And anyway, at that point, they get to Xanadu. Her and Jason start making out because they're like, Etrigan's gone. We can finally be rid of him for good. Isn't this awesome? They're like, yep, cool. And also we got Shining Knight's flying horse and a bunch of other cool stuff. This seems really way too easy. But anyway, let's get going. So they walk through the portal and they get out into Avalon. And it's like, oh my God, it's beautiful. It's fantastic. Also, the portal's not closing. That's kind of weird. That portal should have closed as soon as we made it through. And then we see a whole bunch of defenders of Avalon who are called the Silent Knights, who I think might be robots because they got like a lightning bolt on their shield. I don't know. They might be people, but I think they're robots. Anyway, they come up and they're ready to attack the Demon Knights. And they're like, whoa, we're not invaders. But then Lucifer and his whole army is coming through the portal right behind saying like, ah, yes, we are the invaders. Hello. Hi. How's it going? We're here to take Avalon. And then simultaneously a portal on the other side of the field opens up and the questing queen comes through with her whole horde army. And just like, actually, we're the invaders and we're here to take Avalon. And Etrigan's just like, this part wasn't part of my plan. I'm sorry, Lucifer. And the Demon Knights are like, all right, none of us had anything to do with this, but I think that we might want to move out of the way as both armies start to charge on each other. Okay, so we got a three-way battle between the Knights of Avalon, the Legions of Hell, and the Horde, and then the Demon Knights are caught in the middle. I like it. I think it's a nice setup for a nice big action story. It sounds good to me. A little bit roundabout how we got here, but I followed it. I got it the whole way through. I don't think that it was ever too like, but you only think that I thought that you thought that I think that this. It was just like, no, this is Etrigan's plan. This is someone else's plan, and they all just kind of lap over top of each other until you got to the point where we are now. So, no, it was a solid issue. I'm going to go ahead and say... I'm going to say 8. I really do enjoy this issue, and I've been enjoying this series overall. It just still has a little while to go. It's not getting canceled anytime soon, but we will see how this particular arc wraps up. So, very intrigued. Frankenstein, Agent of Shade, number 14, written by Matt Kint, art by Alberto Ponticelli. This is the next part of the Rot World tie-in, where last issue we had Frankenstein waking up in Rot World and meeting up with Velcoro, who basically told him, hey, we got to go find some colossi around the world, kill them, and get machine parts out of them to build the Soul Grinder, and maybe that'll fix some stuff. So they're on their little quest here, and apparently they have some tech, just a little bit that they managed to get from some Shade net outposts before Shade was destroyed. So they're making their way through Lexington, Missouri, and immediately Velcoro's like, all right, so what do these colossi even look like in the first place? Any idea? And some giant bulls, like absolutely massive, start charging down the street. And I was just like, well, I'm willing to bet that that's it. And he wants to know what the plan is. Frankenstein just jumps right in, sword blazing, and is immediately just knocked down by this bull. And Velcoro's like, yeah, no, great plan. Just jump right in. Sure, whatever. And he pulls out a shade neck gun, and it apparently is not a normal gun, but it's supposed to show you your greatest fear, which when he uses it on the bull immediately has a heart attack and dies. And it's just like, all right, well, that's one way of dealing with it. Sorry I hit you with that gun, Frank. What did it show you? And he's just dead silent, but we get to see that he saw Nina, like, dying very briefly. So building up that relationship a little bit, but they get their pieces of the soul grinder and just like, all right, 1 down, 2 to go. Let's see what else we got. And they just start trekking across the entire country on horseback. And Velcoro literally will not shut up. He just keeps on talking over and over and over again until finally it gets to the point where, like, as they're about to hit San Francisco, he's just like, Velcoro, shut up. So they get to San Fran, they get to the Golden Gate Bridge, and they climb up on top of it, and Frankenstein tells them the plan, that there is a mini egg, like explosive, inside the pack. Frankenstein's going to distract the Colossus, and then it is up to Velcoro to drop in the egg. So Frankenstein jumps off the Golden Gate Bridge down into the water. Inside is, again, another Colossus, this time a bit bigger and water-based. And as Frankenstein's about to plunge down on him, he just gets batted out of the way. And Velcoro's like, yeah, no, great plan. So much for that. And so he drops down the egg, and it explodes inside of the Colossi's mouth. And that's it. That's literally how they take it out. And it's just like, all right, cool, we did it. So at that point, they scour the remains of the explosive to find the piece of the soul grinder. They end up getting it. And it's just like, all right, so where's the last one? Seems a bit too easy so far. And Frankenstein reveals that the last one's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And Velcoro's like, yeah, no problem, I'll fly you there. And it turns out by fly, he doesn't mean like with his wings. He meant like in a plane. Apparently Velcoro's a pilot. So they fly out to Easter Island, where the final one is, and they jump down onto the island, and as they land, immediately the ground starts crumbling beneath them, and comes out this giant, best I can describe as worm creature, and Frankenstein's, again, so not able to take this thing down on his own, but he's actually knocked out from the ground crumbling. He like fell into his chasm, so Velcoro's left on his own, and he pulls out a whole bunch of guns from the bag of shade tech they have. He fires it. None of it's working. Eventually the worm catches up with him, and he's like, Frank, I'm sorry, Velcoro is dead. He is literally crushed in half in front of us. And so at that point, Nina pops up on his like shade tech stuff. He's able to see her through the shade implant. And it's just like, oh, Nina, where am I? What happened? It's like, oh, Velcoro's dead, and the rest of the world is going to win if you don't move. You got to get up. We need you to survive. And so he crawls up out of the chasm, and it's like, don't worry, Frank, you're not alone. And he's like, not alone? What do you mean? And as he looks behind him, there is a giant army of golden robotic women, who I can only assume are like Themyscirians who got like misplaced during the Rot World stuff and became robots in order to survive. I genuinely don't know. They just are golden robot women, and it's like, yep, just whatever. So a pretty brief read. It read very quickly, mainly because Velcoro's talking is like sometimes all a panel is, and it's very easy to just get through all that. Yeah, I mean, I'm still not entirely sure, because they just said, yeah, we need the soul grinder in order to undo this, but it never really made it clear as to like how that would undo this. It's kind of vague in that way. I like it. I think it's a solid tie-in. It's a completely separate plot, obviously, because it happens before the 1 year time skip that the rest of Rot World has. I don't know. I don't see this ending as anything except like he doesn't manage to do it, because the end of this book is, I believe, issue 16. That is the end of this arc as well. So not very much left to it. I'm just curious to see where we go. I'm going to say this one is I'll give it a 7. I think that Velcoro, he's been, barring the Wolfman, he's the one that's gotten like the least amount of interest from me in terms of all the monster men. He got good characterization in this issue, and him going out like he did, genuinely a bit sad. But it was a solid death as well. He's like, geez, I just couldn't manage it. Oh well, crunch. So yeah, I like it. I'm giving it a 7. Looking forward to how Rot World continues over the next 2 issues. The Phantom Stranger issue 2, written by Dan DiDio, art by Brent Anderson. Last issue we left off with the reveal that Phantom Stranger actually has like a wife and 2 kids and a full life, where his name is Philip. And we see that Pandora has found this out. So this issue picks up with one of his, or actually both of his kids' soccer game, and everyone's cheering on, whatever like that. But Philip is a little bit distracted because he sees out on the field Pandora. Nobody else seems to see her, but just him. So she's like, I'm sorry, honey. I know I'm not cheering for our children, but just let me focus on the game real quick. And then he has an out-of-body experience as Phantom Stranger where he goes and talks to Pandora and just like, all right, what's up? What do you need? Why are you here? Why are you at my kid's game? Pandora pulls a gun on him and he's just like, really? A gun? We're doing that again? I think you know it doesn't work. And she's like, all right, whatever. Why do you have a family? Why do you have kids? You can't do that. And he's just like, well, I'll ask you a question. Why are you here? And Pandora's like, fine, all right, whatever, I need your help. So I found the box, Pandora's box, and the wizard was there, and he said that only someone who has the strongest of heart or the darkest of heart can open it. So I really want to open it. And he's like, maybe don't open it? Like, last time you opened it, a whole bunch of bad stuff came out. And she's like, yeah, but I can put the stuff back in. Like, that's what I'm trying. I open it up, I put the stuff in, and then it's not here anymore. So, yeah, we'll do that. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to have, it's clearly this is a bad idea. Pandora's like, well, if you try to stop me from erasing the evil, then I'll expose your lies to your family. Mwahaha. So then, Phantom Stranger, he goes back into his body, and his wife's like, oh, are you ready to leave? Do you want to go? And he's like, why? We're in the middle of the championship game. And he's like, no, we ended the championship game. They just wrapped up. Where are you right now? And the kids come up. One of them got a trophy, and the other one scored like 2 goals. And just like, oh, I'm so happy for you kids, and so happy that you're safe. So they all get home, and he's like, it feels a little bit chilly in here. Honey, why don't you get the kids up for a bath, and I'll take care of the windows and the thermostat down here. So they all go upstairs, and then Phantom Stranger says, all right, show yourself. And he talks to this demon who's sitting on his couch, and it turns out it is the eldest son of Trigon named Belial. And he's like, Belial, I don't know why your dad sent you here, but you're making a mistake because I will wreck you. And he's like, I'm not here for any sort of attacking or anything like that. No. I'm here out of appreciation. See, last issue, or 0 issue, no, it was last issue, you sent our darling sister Raven to us. And yeah, that was super chill of you. Thank you for doing that. But just want to make sure that you're not going to interfere with my interests or anything like that. So I'm coming here personally to give you the warning that if you try to play any games with me at the behest of my father, I will wreck you. And I will also bring along my 2 brothers, Ruskoff and Suge. And they will also bring hell on your home and your family. And then he just disappears. And at that point, Phantom Stranger's like, oh, crap. I really thought I could keep my family safe despite all my Phantom Strangering, but I should have known better. I'm doomed to walk a lonely road, the only road that I have ever known. I don't know where it goes, but it's only me and I walk alone. So he goes up, he sees his family. He's frozen time while he's in his Phantom Stranger form so that he can just appreciate them for a second longer. But then he restarts it and he touches his wife as Philip again. And just like, oh, his name's Philip Stark, by the way. He's like, Philip Stark, you scared the life out of me. And he's like, oh, it just sounded like you could use some help giving the children a bath. And they're all hugging and just like, yes, this is what ideal family time is. And the phone starts to ring, and his wife is like, oh, I wonder who's calling. He's like, I'll go find out. And he goes, picks it up, and he checks the caller ID, I guess. And he's like, I told you never to call me here. Terrence 13. So we got a guy named Terrence 13, who there was a backup story in All-Star Western following Doctors. I think it might have been Terrence 13. So maybe this is like a descendant. Maybe it's the same guy. Who knows? But regardless, Phantom Stranger shows up to his place where he's got like 8 computer monitors all around a swivel chair and a whole bunch of computers. And it's like, hey, I didn't want to call you, but I'm literally desperate. See, you're my only hope. Turns out that I don't know how to save myself from this. And he's like, save yourself from what? And all of a sudden behind is the haunted highwayman who's been hunting Terrence 13 as he is the last of his family line. And just like, yeah, that. Could you help me here with that? And Phantom Stranger's like, this is so a personal problem. I don't need to solve your personal problems. And it's like, all right, well, please. And the haunted highwayman starts firing on Phantom Stranger. He just absorbs the blows. He's like, I don't have time for this. I literally want to just go spend time with my family. But the haunted highwayman manages to get a noose around Phantom Stranger's neck and pull him up. And he's like, oh, well, let me prove to you that even immortals can die. And then I'll get you, Terrence. So then we cut over to outside New York City where there's a diner that, of course, Phantom Stranger was at. He was the one who was at with Raven. And there's a guy talking to the owner of the diner. And it's just like, now, where did you see him last? And it's like, I told you, he just disappeared out of the diner. It was like a ghost. Honestly, I never saw either of them again. And then we get revealed that the person who's interrogating is Jim Corrigan, a.k.a. the guy who was turned into the Spectre in the 0th issue. And he's like, well, if you see him again, be sure to give me a call. We have some unfinished business. I like it. I actually think this is a good setup for a future plot. We got a whole thing with Trigon and that family going on. We have Pandora's thing going on, whatever she's planning to do. We've got Jim Corrigan as God's Wrath coming after literally Judas Iscariot, and we have him just wanting to live a normal life. I think these are all solid stories that are being told. It is just an issue of, I still don't quite know what Phantom Stranger's power set is. Like, we've established now that he can stop time and he can, like, astral project. Okay, I'm good with that. I can accept those powers. But I'm really shaky on the whole, why is he able to just do all this other stuff? Teleportation? Seems like that's a thing, but, like, they never quite specifically say. So just a little bit more on that, I'd be much appreciative. But I am enjoying the story, even just now at issue technically 3. Because that 0 issue definitely kicked off the plot. I thought Jim Corrigan was just going to be a throwaway, but no, it turns out he's vital to the plot moving on. So I'm going to give this one a 7.5. I do enjoy it. I am looking forward to seeing how it goes. I think this one's actually a pretty long-running one, so we will see the continuing adventures of the Phantom Stranger. And that's it. That's all the comics came out from DC Comics this November 14th, 2012. And some of those were rough. The Team 7, Legion was okay. Ravagers, though. There's a lot in there that was just not great. And it comes down to, why is this an event? Why did we have to have 7 overlapping events and crossovers all at the same time? I don't get it. I don't understand you. If everything's an event, then nothing is. I don't get why you... Anyway, show's done. I'm just going to wrap up now. But I do want to tell you what's coming out next week. Next week, we have 13 comics, including the number 14 issues of Batwoman, Birds of Prey, Catwoman, Nightwing, Red Hood, Supergirl, Green Lantern, New Guardians, DC Universe Presents, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Blue Beetle, and Legion of Superheroes. Additionally, we have the number 2 issue of Sword of Sorcery, aka Amethyst of Gemworld. I mean, I'm excited about that last one, but then there's Legion, which if they start doing anything with Fatal 5 at this point, I'm going to have to go and actually like research stuff online because that book's not teaching me anything about the Fatal 5. I have no idea who they, write in the comments if you know who the Fatal 5 are. If you have any thoughts on the Fatal 5, you can go ahead and hit me up on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. You like that little segue there? All one word, at DC Comics Podcast. Additionally, we have a Patreon that you can send your money off to. That is Mild Fuzz TV. For just $8 a month, Elon Musk will not get $8 a month, and I think that that's more than worth it. Anyway, that'll do it for me. I am done looking at screens because that's how I've been reading almost all these comics, and I just want to go to bed. God, it really was a rough week. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, listening. However it is you consume this podcast, be sure to give it a thumbs up, a like, subscribe, smash that button. Do it. Destroy whatever liking mechanism you have. Annihilate it. Drive it into this Sorry, once again, I'm done with all this. Thank you very much. Hope to see you next week. And as always, try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.